Quantum Break is developed by Remedy Studios, the studio responsible for Alan Wake, Max Payne, and Control. I think what kept me away was the whole TV show part of it, if I'm honest. So it was released as an Xbox One exclusive back in 2016 and is an action-adventure third-person shooter starring a manipulative lord, an X-Men, and a hobbit. And it's actually directed by Max Payne himself. But you play as Sean Ashmore's character, Jack Joyce, who gets time-bending powers after a time machine experiment goes horrifically wrong. The experiment also changed Paul and gave him powers as well, and it also kickstarted an apocalyptic time disaster called End of Time. Very fitting. But so the story is okay. It's not anything that I've ever heard before. I kind of felt Paul's motive throughout the whole series was a bit weak, but what drew me into the game were the powers and the gameplay. These are the true stars of the show. No pun intended. You have Time Stop that shoots out a bubble and freezes anyone inside it. That's pretty cool. You got Time Vision. This is like the Eagle Vision. This is the one you'll be pressing a bunch to make sure you're not missing anything out of every single room, like you do in any game that has some sort of X-ray or highlight vision thing. Time Dodge. This pauses time for a little bit, just enough to have Jack dodge out of the way, and this can be comboed with other sorts of things for like some sort of bullet time things. Pretty cool. Got Time Shield. There's another bubble that just protects you. You got Time Blast. This is a very powerful attack that knocks enemies back, and Time Rush that freezes time and has Jack sprinting around it, and if you run up to guys you can land a dash punch, which is pretty cool. Throughout you collect chronoun sources. These shiny little things are upgrade points to boost the abilities, like making the effects last a bit longer. You get faster cooldowns, your standard upgrades. But I feel like you can actually just beat the game without ever upgrading anything. You don't really feel the upgrades that you do. That part's a bit tame. They work on a cooldown system, and they're honestly pretty fluid and really satisfying to use. They all work pretty much like they're supposed to. I never had an issue with any of that, but more often than not, I usually end up neglecting an ability or two in these types of games that have just a ton of abilities on your screen. But here, I did find myself using them all because they're very fun to use, and the situation to use them just presents itself. The other part of the offense in the game are the guns, which the diversity of the guns does lack a bit for me. They're all just kind of there. I don't even think I have a favorite. You got your handguns, your machine guns, shotguns, but you're really not like excited to use any particular one. And there's no sniper, which I did felt the need for one. But this is not to say that shooting doesn't feel great. It's very snappy, especially with this lock-on system. And going into slow-mo after whacking the last guy with a headshot feels so satisfying. I think like a lot of it has to do with the system that was implemented back in Max Payne 3, where the enemies actually respond to the bullets. But I think it's because they wanted the powers to shine that they kind of purposely made the guns kind of meh. Jack auto covers, and I kind of wish I could control that. It's not bad by any means. It does its job like it's supposed to, but that just feels like something I prefer to have the control of. You also can't crouch. He does that by himself as well. And you can't shoot from the hip either. That really annoyed me. I really wish you could, especially with the shotgun. And my biggest issue probably of the whole game is that there's no sprint. I get it. You do get an ability that pretty much serves as a sprint, but Jack normal speed is just a little bit too slow, making me wish I just could sprint. Like, come on, man, pick up the pace a little bit. There are platforming segments that have you using combinations of your powers, and these platforming segments can be kind of janky. It doesn't feel natural for the game to be platforming. You can kind of jump, but it doesn't feel great. And I also get it. You want me to use the powers outside of combat, but maybe platforming wasn't it. Maybe you should have done some sort of puzzles, would have worked way better. I do like the stutters in the game. This is where time stands still and you can take guns away from guys, and other enemies suited up with time suits come in and you do battle with them. And this led into a variety of enemies, flash-like enemies zooming around the level, these big chungus juggernaut dudes, turret guys, and many more. I will say that I wasn't a huge fan of the final battle though. I found it to be annoying and tedious more than I found it to be fun. So that was a bit of a letdown. Actor models and facial animations are pretty spot on. They look exactly like the actor, and the environments are interesting as well. Graphically, this thing was driving me crazy. I think I spent like 10 minutes messing around with the settings on my TV thinking something was off. It's because of something that is called ghosting, this movement trail right here. And after doing some research, I found out that this was an artistic choice. I'm not a fan of it. I guess it was just done so well that I thought something was wrong with my TV. Speaking of TV, the TV show for me was a bit choppy, but I did eventually eventually get used to it. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the TV show is in the game. There's no need to buy, look online, download, anything else. After each act, the episode will start and you can even skip them completely if you want. But before you get to the episode, at the beginning of the chapter before the episode starts, there are junction impacts. These are two drastically different choices that will affect the story both in the game and in the show. And because you're making these decisions as Paul Serene, aka Littlefinger, I personally went with the more harsher and evil choices. But even with all these different choices, there's still only one ending, which is kind of weird. Ripple findings also affect the show. These are things that you find while playing that kind of show up or just mentioned in the show, and that's pretty cool. Like, while playing, I randomly played a tablet that had an audiobook on it, and in the TV show, Martin Hatch, played by the legendary Lance Reddick, enters that same room and makes a comment on it, like, shut that off or whatever. That kind of stuff is really cool. There's actual crossover between the game and the show, and it's great. Unfortunately, the show part isn't a strong enough partner to the game, and it really falls short. The show is showing you like other characters' perspective, but the ones I didn't really care about. Like, why should I care about this random ass IT guy or this one lady? Like, why? The crossovers that really mattered doesn't even actually happen. I don't know if it was the path I chose suck. I was usually on the minority side because they tell you what amount of people pick what, but the main people are barely in the show. They might pop up for a line or two and then just dip. And it also takes a minute for the show to get going. It's kind of slow. If I were to like kind of explain it a little bit better, it's kind of like visual DLC, if that makes any sense. It does give you slight backstory to certain things, but you don't really need it to enjoy the game. If you really wanted to, you can just skip the whole show entirely. There are 4 episodes. They're around 45 minutes long. And to complete the whole thing, it took me around 13 hours to beat the game and watch the show. So if you take the show out, it's only actually like 10 hours of gameplay. Back in the game, the chatter between gunfights is standard except for a few cool references.
What are you, some kind of goddamn X-Men?
I also love how Remedy always sneaks in Easter eggs from its past games, making it feel like some sort of Remedy-verse. But dialogue isn't bad or cheesy, it's just that I didn't feel any actor have like any fantastic performances. Everyone was just good. I guess it's always just kind of cool to play as an actor. It was also kind of cool to see Courtney Hope, who would actually go on to play Jesse Faden in Control, which I really love. By the way, tell me down in the comments what's your favorite Remedy game. Mine would have to, I think I would have to go with Control. Yeah. Remedy had the idea of playing a TV show. It's a fun idea and they went for it. The reality of it is playing a TV show is weird because if I wanted to watch a show, I would just watch a show. But I want to play a game. So I sit down, grab my controller and get ready to play. So you get to play for about an hour or so. Then you have to take a 45-minute break to watch a show. Like I said, the show isn't really as good as the game. I appreciate the idea and the combo of media, but there's actually a reason why there really hasn't been anything much like it since. Remedy always takes fun risks. Their games are always very creative and mess with all types of fun themes. And you can always expect some sort of cool and trippy scenes, and this definitely doesn't disappoint. But I'm going to say it failed successfully. It failed with the TV show, but it was pretty successful in the game part. And I'm no less a Remedy fan because of it. I'm probably more because they are never afraid of thinking outside the box in order to provide something cool and original. You can see proof of my fandom in these videos right over here. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and remember to always and forever, you do you.